in the preparation area. Some 35 platforms available for practice training. The crowds that we saw in the days leading up to the beginning of these championships for Süleymanoglu, 3,000 in to watch him just prepare. Well, it isn't quite like that now. But I think, David, we're hoping for a little more of fiery session now on the clean and jerk, because you've done some careful calculations. I thought that Mr. Kakashvili may have blown his chance, but you think differently.
Well, that's right. Although Kakashvili is 7.5 kilos down on the snatch, he does have lighter body weight on Chakharov and Petrov. And Petrov's best clean and jerk, 227.5. As I said earlier, Kakashvili in the Olympic Games clean and jerked 235. So if he's on that kind of form today, we could see a much closer competition than we first thought.
Yes, just to reiterate so that you're not confused, when we say that Kakashvili lifted 235 in the Olympic Games, I have to remind you that the weights have been adjusted right across the sport, and so the current world record of 227.5 set by Petrov in Sokolov in this year's European Championships is actually now in 1994 the world record. The other records put into the history books, that's the weight that Petrov and I suspect Chakharov and indeed Kakashvili are going to have to beat, probably, if they want to deny the Russian 3 gold medals in this particular championship. Picture now, this is the young German, Marc-Andre Frank.
Yes, warming up, 180 kilos on the bar. In the warm-up, lifters will generally go to within about 10 kilos of their opening poundage.
Yes, he was a bit disappointing, Frank, on the snatch, 155. That's about 10 kilos down on the amount that he and his coach had hoped he'd lift. And he's aiming for 200 on the clean and jerk. So let's hope he does that. Another interesting factor, surprising one to us, the Turkish lifters, those who succeed at World Championship level here, well, the prizes are showered on them. New cars, new houses, and training grants and facilities worth some £20,000, $30,000. And by contrast, the Germans, who have good sponsorship arrangements if they're successful, like Mark Huster and Ingo Steenhoffel, well, their reward in sports aid for winning a world championship, 3,000 Deutschmarks. So it's quite an indication of the importance that the Turkish sports ministry puts on their athletes succeeding. They really are determined to reward success.
Yes, and by contrast, in Great Britain, you'll get a pat on the back and a drug test.
Well, weightlifting, probably the most regulated, in fact certainly the most regulated of all sports now, in the efforts to discourage doping and to punish those who do indulge. And there's no messing about. If you do, it's a life ban.
No, it used to be a life ban, but they decided that that was too severe because none of the other sports actually would follow weightlifting. So I believe it's now 4 years.
Well, Piotr Palinski for Poland, failing at 190 kilos. Now, the life ban I was really thinking about there was the rules of the Olympic Association. as opposed to weightlifting, which in certain circumstances can be superior. Very complicated. But the good news so far, no problems at these championships, and that's very encouraging. Gerald Scandella of France lifted 150 in the snatch. Disappointing that, failed twice at 155.
Well, using a different technique, choosing to jump the legs sideways, using what we call a power jerk, as opposed to splitting the legs, one forward and one back.
Different it may be, but as he looked in the snatch, he looks to be well below his best at the moment. Makarov, the first of the two men from Kazakhstan. 170 kilos in the snatch. 3 good lifts, but of course well behind the 186 kilos of the winner, Petrov. But he is lifting according to the form book at the moment. In fact, the snatch was 2.5 kilos above his best for the season so far, and his best for the clean and jerk 197.5, so maybe he's going to just touch the 200 kilo mark. I think he'd be pleased if he could do that. Now Piotr Poliński for Poland, back again to see what he can do at 190 kilos.
Yes, needs to work a lot harder in the second phase of the lift. Which he does.
And he gets the improvement. And he can't let that bar go until the judges indicate. So now Scandella, second attempt. Better clean. And as a result of that, the jerk is completed. So he has a weight, and so he's assured of a total.
Yes, using the different technique for jerking, the feet going to the side. I think if you watch in the later competition, you'll see Kakachavili also prefers to jump the feet to the side as opposed to the normal splitting of the legs.
So he has one more opportunity to improve on this, and here's Frank, who you saw lifting 180 in training backstage. But this, of course, is the real thing. Remember, his target for tonight, 200. That's a setback.
Yes, and starts with his hands close, and then as he comes up, he'll takes them out wider. Now again, the wider hand spacing, meaning that the weight doesn't have to go as high, but of course also means that becomes more difficult to hold overhead. So really need to get the right combination with the grip.
Harvey Goodman, Australia, opening lift. Also 192.5, and he's well capable of more than this.
Yes, Goodman holds the Commonwealth record at 203 kilos. So again, I wonder if perhaps he'll just get one in and then go for the record.
Well, they're going to be big steps if he does.
Well, I'm not too sure what the referees are going to think about that.
He's a lucky man, I think. 2-1.
Yes, and just another example of the inconsistency of the refereeing.
No problem with the clean.
No, very strong lifter on the clean, but the arms clearly unlocking and relocking. I think if Mark Hooster had a look at that refereeing, he'd be very unhappy about the fact that his snatch on 175 was fouled last night.
Absolutely. I think that was a very clear double press on the left arm. I just wonder whether there's been a little...
Yes, and I think the two referees just returning to their seats there. So I think that probably the jury would have called them over and had a word with them about that one.
Yes, because they've effectively let him get away with it. They've given him a good lift. They can't take that back. So Goodman, well, he better get it right next time. He better be spot on. Frank now, second attempt.
So cleans well again. That wide hand spacing.
Just about. But I think he's going to struggle to get the 200 that he'd like. And he might well be advised to just add an extra 2.5 and do this in simple steps rather than...
Yes, perhaps needs to go back to Germany and revise his technique.
Well, one of the opportunities he's got here, being at the World Championships, is the experience of not only the competition but also being able to see the other world-class lifters at work at very close quarters, and that inevitably is a big advantage. But he's got his total for the evening, so that's part of the, well, in fact, a very large part of his objective achieved. Now, is this the appearance of Chakarov? If it is, it's a little earlier than we expected. In fact, it's rather a lot earlier, and I can't believe now it's Makarov. And even Makarov at 195. Second lift. He's lifted 197.5. He did that at Hiroshima.
So 5 for 5. Good clean, elbows high. And the bar goes straight to arm's length.
And he looks to have good strength overhead.
Yes, and I wonder if he'll go for the 200 kilos.
I would think so. Particularly as the bar is already moving up to within 2.5 kilos of that mark. $197.5. So Goodman is taking the 5.5, or I should say the 5 kilo step. And if he does this, well, I suppose it's not unreasonable for him to go for a Commonwealth record.
Now Goodman, as ever, very strong in the clean, the first phase, but has always been a bit shaky on the jerks.
Well, he had one of his 9 lives with the first lift at 192.5. This better be textbook, otherwise I think they'll give him 3 red lights, as a matter of fact.
Well, that's better.
And I think the speed really helped there.
Yes, learn from his earlier lift. And this time, straight to arm's length.
Yes, he didn't hang about, really. And that certainly helped him as Piotr Beletsky comes in. This is his second lift. He put one in at 190, and he's been sitting and waiting. So this is a big increase, 197.5. There's not many lifters that go in 7.5 kilo steps.
Yes, probably disappointed with his first attempt failure at 190. Really wanting to prove something here.
Now, I wonder whether that was a little too much. That's 197.5 for Beletsky, and that's his third and final attempt, in fact.
Yes, and really doesn't get enough height, and the positioning under the bar, all wrong.
The first man to attempt 200 kilos tonight in the clean and jerk. This is Kokkas Leonidas for Greece. Not anything particularly special in the clean and jerk. Just to remind you, he just lifted 160 kilos on the first lift and failed the next 2. So his evening now focused on this and 2 more lifts to follow.
Well, he doesn't waste any time, does he?
No. Still 27.5 kilos to go before we get to the world record, though. It seems a long way, but somebody will break the mold very soon, I feel. Popov. This his first attempt at 200.
Well, we wondered how Popov would fare in the clean and jerk, not being able to stand up with 172.5 in the snatch. Remember, got that very bad arm lock.
Gets the clean very quickly. Watch the right arm. But it doesn't look as if it's locked out. But as you said, it's been noted and approved by the judges, and he gets his 3 white lights. But if you didn't know, you'd almost certainly give a red, wouldn't you?
Yes, that's right. It makes me wonder if perhaps at some stage he's broken his arm or sustained some kind of an elbow injury.
So now a big lift for Mr. Scandella. He's got 190. But 200, completely different prospect. Now watch for the little sideways jumps. Beyond him, I think.
Yes, did well to clean it. It was a big jump from 190. And in the second phase of the lift, just proving too much.
Well, Frank also here dreaming a little bit. He's got 192.5, so he's doing exactly the same as Scandella. This, one of his targets for the World Championships, to come here and lift 200 kilos. I think he's strong enough, but is he skillful enough?
Well, 200, a real benchmark for most weightlifters.
Yes, worth underlining, you're looking at a man who weighs 90.62 kilos, trying to lift twice his own body weight.
That's right, 200 kilos, 440 pounds.
That's an awful lot of sacks of potatoes. Yes, potatoes come in 25 kilo sacks, so that's 8 sacks of potatoes he's trying to lift up. If you can try and imagine that, it's just an awful lot of weight. And there are men who are capable of that and more, and we're going to see them soon. Makarov for Kazakhstan. Now he might. So looking for a season's best. Not to be. Now again, really didn't get the height on the bar.
That's right, the clean, very smooth, very competent. The second phase of the lift, not quite managing to lock those arms out.
Well, here's... well, I was going to say that I thought it was going to be Harvey Goodman who was going to take 202.5, but in fact, maybe he is going to opt for that Commonwealth record. This is Makarov failing at 200. He's got another lift to come.
Yes, of course, another way of looking at 200 kilos, it's a fifth of a ton, of a metric ton.
It's very heavy. Now, Victor Beletsky, first attempt, 202.5. Well, that was very quick, and that's just as quick. And he means business.
Yes, a very strong opening attempt. Good height on the pull. Stands without any problems and drives the weight straight overhead.
Yes, he looked very solid, big strong thighs there, and he really did drive up very effectively. Now, well, I suppose you've got to be disappointed, haven't you? This is Harvey Goodman's last lift, and 202.5. He's trying to get over 200 kilos, clearly. But another kilo for the Commonwealth record, wouldn't it have been worth it, really?
Well, he's not going to win this competition. He's already got a total. I would have thought that another 2.5 kilos would have certainly been worth a shot.
Now, I wonder.
Well, it looked good to me.
He's got it. 202.5 to Harvey Goodman of Australia. And for the moment, at least, he goes into the lead. By 0.08 on body weight only, I hasten to add. But he's finished lifting. Remember, Beletsky has only just started, and there are some men yet to come onto the stage. The bar up to 205 now for Oleg Shumak. And this is his moment to try and make up for 3 failures in the snatch.
Well, didn't look good on that left arm. I'm not quite sure what the referees will make of that. Well, the jury have called them up once. Perhaps they'll be calling them up again, because if you look again at this left arm, there's a definite press out.
And they are a lot closer than we are. Right on the edge of the stage there, and they should be able to pick those things up as Leonidas comes out. Had an early lift at 200. 205 for him. Proving a little too much on this occasion here for the Greek lifter. Of course, he has recently acquired a new teammate in Kakachvili. As Beletsky, 205. That was just a 2.5 kilo step. But it's going to be more than that. So Leonidas is going to come back in for his third and final lift at 205. So the real battle of the evening yet to begin. Petrov, interesting to see what weight he comes in at. Chakharov also. Looking at the weights entered before the competition, you have to enter a weight. And you can either be very brave or you can be a bit cautious. Petrov has entered 220, so you can see we've got a little while to wait. Chakharov 210 and Kakashvili 210. And the tactics are going to be very clear that Petrov is virtually going to wait for everybody to lift before he starts to show what he can really do. And if he does enter at 220, and remember the record which he set, 227.5, well, it's got to be on the cards that it's going to go. So, Kokos Leonidis, third and final time, his final lift of the evening, and indeed the championships. This to improve on his present total of 360 kilos in the snatch and the clean and jerk. But it's not to be, and he does in fact finish with 360.
Yes, doesn't look comfortable. Tries to get rid of that bar as quick as possible. And Chakharov coming onto the platform for 207.5. Seems to have sustained an injury in the warm-up room as he limps up the stairs and back down again, but his coach says no.
Is that hip?
Yes, Chakharov's competition total's been very variable over the last 4 years due to injuries, and
well, if he is in trouble, this is going to be incredibly stressful. No. I just don't think that he can, and I think he's done the intelligent thing. We didn't see backstage what happened, but it's perfectly clear, David, you've seen this unfortunately happen, and he would have been silly to be in that much pain to try and do this, because there's no way that he's going to be able to lift that sort of weight.
Well, he's obviously caused himself some serious damage. Already won the silver medal in the snatch.
And it looks to me as if the defending world champion has accepted. And that's disappointing, not only for him, but obviously for us, because we would have liked to have seen him lift to potential. Victor Beletsky, meanwhile, 207.5. Depending on what he takes next time round, might just be lifting for a medal.
Yes, haven't seen this man lift before. Certainly seems to be in there with a chance, especially now with Chakharov. Well, Chakharov's name back on the board again, but I don't think they'll be sending him out for a second attempt.
No, I mean, that looked pretty serious. So it means that, on paper at least, Kakashvili is the only man who would really take him on, as the bar goes up to 210 for the Olympic champion at 90 kilos. and really surrounded by the coaches.
Yes, and he seems to be coming out on 210, so you begin to wonder if he's anywhere near the sort of form he was on for the Olympic Games.
Well, if he's going to threaten Petrov, he's going to do this in 10-kilo steps, which is quite a task. We'll soon get an idea of his form. Well, that looked powerful enough. Super quick in the jerk.
Yes, interesting to note, in the Olympic Games he opened on 220 kilos, then jumped to 225, and then took a massive 10-kilo jump to 235, so he's done it before.
Well, I suppose that could be the tactic to, at the very least, secure the silver medal, wait for Petrov, and then go completely bananas with something that none of us would ever believe, but probably he's the only man tonight who could pull it off. But there are some other men around. Here's Shumek. Again, 205 was his opening weight, relatively conservative. But at this weight, on known form, he's just about on his maximum mark, certainly for the season. So if he does this, maybe there's a bit more, but 220, I would think that would be difficult for him to attain. As it is, he's going to have one more go at that weight. Of course, he has the option to put it up, but that would not seem to be a wise thing to do. David?
Well, cleans well, but again, having trouble with that left arm and not really getting his body underneath the bar. So the point about strength being combined with technique coming out again, you really need both, and you need both on a consistent basis.
Now, Beletsky, this is an important lift. If he could pull this off, well, there just might be a bronze medal in this. What a pity.
Yes, looked very heavy in the clean. He's really having to work to stand up from that low position, and not really left with enough energy to get the height necessary for a successful jerk.
So 380 his total. Just about in the lead at the moment. Now Shumek, last chance. Once again, never getting himself established underneath that bar.
That's right, the strength obviously there, capable of lifting 212.5, but not capable of getting himself into the ideal position to maintain that weight overhead.
So at 220, the predicted rate that he would enter, in comes the man who, I have to say, virtually in one lift could arguably win the gold medal. But remember, Kakashvili, 210 kilos lifted, and he hasn't
obviously going to at least 220.
Yes, so he's really going to play big boys games, Kakashvili, tonight. And held it up there for a second or so, more than he had to. Well, that's the man of the moment, Petrov.
Yes, textbook clean and jerk.
Really does chuck this up. Gets it up there, establishes it, and there's never any doubt. So Kakashvili trying to respond at 220. Now, one important point here, Kakashvili is lighter than Petrov. This is second lift, so he does have one more, but he does need this, David, doesn't he?
Well, this would put him into the gold medal position on the clean and jerk at the moment, and both lifters have, well, no, sorry, he only has one lift left.
Just puts a little pressure on Petrov, though. Now watch for this jerk.
Well, he does look good, doesn't he?
Oh, he's really excellent. Really excellent. Kakashvili 25, Petrov only 20. So, Kakashvili, is it going to be him who takes the next lift at 222.5? I'm surprised at that. It doesn't seem to be the way that we would have thought the tactics would have worked. We would have been pretty certain to let Petrov come out, I would have thought.
Well,
because as far as Kakashvili is concerned, he's definitely going to get the silver medal.
That's right. I would guess that Kakashvili will now play the waiting game.
He's got to stop that clock and force Petrov to lift.
And that's exactly what he does.
The world record is 227.5.
Yeah, it's also worth remembering that Kakashvili, if he wants to win the overall title, will need to clean and jerk 7.5 kilos more than Petrov. So Kakashvili with a bit of a decision to make. Does he just go for the clean and jerk gold medal, or does he go for the clean and jerk and the total?
Well, Kakashvili in the World Championships last year lifted 222.5. That was then, and this is now. And this is an interesting tactic here by Petrov, going for 225 and really making it hard for Kakashvili. Well, there's no problem there. Now, making it hard is exactly this. What does Kakashvili do now? Does he opt to lift? And if he does, what weight does he put on the bar? Not just to beat Petrov to take the lead, but he knows that if he goes now, then Petrov has one lift to respond. So Kakashvili at the moment 227.5 on the bar. Well, that wouldn't be the new world record. 228 would be, and he might as well go for that if he's going to go for 227.5. So Petrov is going for 228, a new world record, and goodness knows what Kakashvili is going to do, because if he does, then the 235 that he lifted in the Olympic Games when it was a 91 kilo, I should say it was a 90 kilo class, that's what he would have to do.
Yes, after this lift, Kakashvili, as I said earlier, has got a big decision to make. Does he take 227.5 and take the gold medal on the clean and jerk, or
glory?
Does he take the big one, 232.5, if Petrov is unsuccessful with this lift, or 235 kilos if Petrov is successful? 235 kilos, of course, 7.5 kilos over the existing world record.
Well, Petrov is very special. The name's special. 100 years of weightlifting championships, and in that time, over 50% of the titles have been won by a man of this name. But they think that ultimately this man might be the greatest of them all. But this is his first crack at the senior title, and the next 2 or 3 minutes are going to be very telling. Well, I think he's certainly got the weight right. 228 looked to be just about. I don't think he was ready for much more than that. But that is a new world record. But in terms of the clean and jerk and the overall title, only 227.5 will count. So is it the clean and jerk, or is it? Now that, well, is a strange calculation by our
mathematics. He needs to take 235 kilos, so no real point in taking 232.5. He may as well have taken the 227.5, which would have assured him of the gold medal on the clean and jerk.
Yes, I must admit that is a bit bizarre. The difference, of course, it's that 172.5 that Kakashvili lifted, or the 180 that he lifted in the...
no, Kakashvili snatched 177.5.
Exactly, compared with 185 that counted for Petrov in the snatch. So,
yes, looking at the board, it looks as if Kakashvili realises that perhaps 235 today is beyond him, so happy to settle for an attempt at the world record and the gold medal on the clean and jerk.
Big lift, I think. In terms of tactics, Kakashvili has won the day, providing he can make the lift.
I think I heard the announcer say stop the clock. Not quite sure what's going on. Well,
that makes absolutely no sense to put 230 kilos on the bar. I mean,
he doesn't need 230 kilos. But of course, having said that, Petrov was first in the draw, and I think the reason that Kakashvili is having to take 230 is because he was last in the draw. Therefore, if he'd wanted to take 227.5, he would have had to go before Petrov.
Absolutely. That's how complex the tactics are. That's why you need 3 coaches to work it all out. Big moment. Now, does he have... No. The clean took too much out of him.
Yes, really struggling to stand from that bottom position, not looking anywhere near as strong as he did in the Olympic Games. And just look at the speed he gets underneath that bar. Really fights from that biting point in the parallel position, but just not enough left. But a valiant effort.
Indeed, does get the bar over the head. So Petrov at the end of the day gets his 3 gold medals for the snatch, the clean and jerk, and the overall championship. Not quite the competition we'd anticipated, and a big disappointment. But comes to these championships, 3rd place in the rankings. He's out the back. So he now can start thinking about the clean and jerk.